Africa is a continent of slums, and it is this way because it is urbanizing in poverty. Unlike the urbanization of Europe that took place 200 years ago, in which there was the Industrial Revolution and industrial expansion and jobs being created, African cities are growing in size despite not growing economically. And so they're growing in poverty. And this is the big difference between today's urbanization in Africa and the urbanization of Europe. African urbanization is urbanization in poverty.
Professor Adam Ahmed. I am Professor of Urban and Regional Planning at Ahmadu Bello University Zaria and coordinator of the Center for Spatial Information Science at the same university. And what the center does is research in sustainable urbanization, and we maintain a lab per se at the university village, where we're able to study the way low-income households, survive through accessing land, how they are able to build and create wealth out of, ownership and the assets that they have. And over the years, we've realized that these are a set of people that, have developed substantial strategies, in the way they negotiate their way within the housing market, and have built some resilience.
Idan mutum ya samu fili wanda yake so, in ka samu masu wuri asalin waɗanda su ne ke da filin wurin, bayan kun gama cinikinku za ku rubuta agreement tsakanin kai da wanda yake da fili ya baka takardar mallaka ta wurin shi, ka nemi mai anguwa ward head kenan na wannan wuri, shi ma zai baka confirmation letter. A daga nan za ka ansa wannan na wurin mai anguwa, ka nemi dagaci na wannan garin, shi ma yana da letter da ya kamata ya baka confirming you zuwa wurina ni district head. To daga nan wurina ni ne zan yi final signing ko approval. To daga wurina ne za mu baka takarda confirmation letter, sai ka tafi da shi Ministry of Land, a nan ne za su baka CFO naka. In ba tare da namu ba, su ma land ba su welcoming na su ba da CFO na wannan wuri. Ka ji yadda abin yake kenan.
Looking at, the way they handle from the experience of what they have gone through, and we thought that when you bring the issue of improving their ability to access land, get them access to capital that they can, build, because the moment they are able to have the titles, then they are able to have the security to access the, grants, and once they have that, they would invest into creating, better house, and then be able to earn income out of it, and then life goes on. So we thought that through that strategy that we could solve 90% of humanity's problems regarding, housing and livelihood. And so along the line, we've been privileged to host the Nigeria Resilient Cities Network, which we found to be a very important platform that speaks the same language with the research interests of the center. And in a few years, per se, the NRCN has been able to, take those initial perceptions and concepts and develop it into what we call now the 4P.
Looking at the way they have been doing things in the past or currently, conventional top-down planning, and I think the realization that a more participatory approach should be introduced and followed has been communicated to them as well. So I think this is a process, of course.
The government of Niger State was very, very concerned with one very important report that came out in 2010, the ease of doing business, World Bank, which ranked Niger State 16 in ease of obtaining certificate of occupancy or title. So that gave NIGIS, okay, how do we improve? So that created a lot of things for us to do to improve that.
So there are two parallel processes in Nigeria. The one illustrated by the district head is the traditional land titling arrangement, the traditional informal land market, which is overseen and supervised by local chiefs. On the other hand, Dr. Hussaini has described the ease of getting a certificate of occupancy, a C of O. And these parallel processes are often at odds with each other. The purpose of 4P is to bring them together, to bring together what goes on in the public and private sphere, the formal sphere, with what goes on in the people sphere, the informal sphere. So the public sphere is dominated by the governor of the state, who has the powers to issue what are known as C of O's, or certificates of occupancy. In the case of Niger State, this is Governor Sani Bello, and he has the power, and he actually initiated a scheme known as the C of O Bonanza, where he reduced the cost of certificates of occupancy. The private sector, which is the second P in the 4P, is where we're going to have a fund to deliver our project. These include banks, financial institutions. And finally, you have the people sector, which is dominated by the emirate, or the chiefs, the local chiefs, who have the power to endorse and approve land transactions. And the purpose of 4P is to bring these three factors together. 4P is to make sure that the public-private people partnership works effectively across all the spheres, the informal and the formal. There's been a lot of focus in Nigeria over the last few years on affordable housing, how to crack the conundrum of affordable housing. And one funder that has been at the forefront of this drive has been, GIZ, the German Technical Cooperation Agency, and in particular the GIZ SEDIN program.
The program is commissioned by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And the current phase of the program started in March last year, 2017, and will run till April next year, 2019. And the main aim of the program is to increase employment and income for micro, small and medium enterprises.
Then more at the policy level, we are working with partners at the federal level, Federal Ministry of Power Works and Housing, and also at the state levels to improve the enabling environment conditions for SMEs in the construction sector, and also to support public-private dialogues between the different decision makers to improve affordable housing delivery in Nigeria. And of course, one of the aspects is also urban governance and urban planning, and there we came across the 4P approach, which was first piloted and studied and tried in Katsina.
But in the course of our work in Minna, we found out that what the Resilient Cities Network, Nigerian Resilient Cities Network, was doing would actually add value to what we're already doing in Niger State. So we thought it important to try out this model called the 4P, the urban governance model in Minna. And we coined it UnSlumming Minna.
First start with Gidan Kwanu, which naturally we were very interested on that because there was a road from that linked the other side of Minna towards industrial layout. So if you look at that pocket of land, if allowed uncontrolled, we are just creating a kind of new envelope of unplanned development that will engulf the whole town.
So UnSlumming Minna was born, and we've chosen as a pilot site somewhere known as Gidan Kwanu, which is one of the growth zones of Minna City. It's situated opposite the campus of the Federal University of Technology, Minna. Indeed, the history of Gidan Kwanu and the campus is bound together because Gidan Kwanu actually existed as a community inside the land occupied by the university, and it was kind of pushed out and resettled in 1988. They were displaced. 102 plots were provided of 15 by 30 meters, a total of about 8 hectares layout. The houses were not built up and the villagers were left to build with mud. What has happened subsequently is that the village is now economically dependent on the university, and FUT, the university, is the economic anchor to the village, providing student and staff housing, space for micro, small, medium enterprises, as well as a transport hub. However, this development has not all been good. There have been winners and losers. The place has got wonderful market potential because of student housing and staff housing, but the indigents, the original villagers who were resettled out of the campus, the university campus, just can't afford to invest. And so what has happened is that the investors are doing very well, but the indigents, the villagers, are largely still poor farmers. What is needed, therefore, in Gidankwano is to close this gap and to create a more inclusive form of urbanization. The local community lack basic services. They live like a slum. The investment properties are well serviced with power, water and sanitation services. Our vision for Gidankwano is that SDG number 11 will be achieved by 2030 to be inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable.
The way it was growing, if we left it to the people with very little government influence, there was a lot of mistrust between people and the government. But with the 4P model, we think it's a better approach, getting the people closer to government, getting to understand how they can be involved in developing common areas within the city. So that's where we got this going.
So the Housing Empowerment Loan Program, or HELP Minna, is the investment program that has been designed for Gidankwano to unslum Gidankwano. It begins with the Niger State government putting forward a budget and investment policy to support the project. We're then looking for investment funding to fund the HELP Intervention Fund. This funding will be loaned out at 2% to the fund through banks, who will in turn charge another 2% before passing it on to the borrowers. The governor will issue CFOs, or title documents, for each of the pieces of land for each of the applicants. Gidankwano, we believe that from our preliminary feasibility, about 200 million naira will be needed, or $600,000. At an average of 2 million naira per loan, or $6,000 per loan, about 100 loans can be given out. And these loans may actually range from 500,000 naira to 5 million naira. But the average will be about 2 million naira, based on prior research that we've done. NRCN, Nigeria Resilient Cities Network, will act as brokers and supervisors for this project for another 2% commission on the amount borrowed. And what this means is that in the end, the self-builders, the villagers, will build the houses themselves. We'll cut out the contractor, we'll cut out the developer. And they will actually be borrowing the money at 6%. And so self-built housing is our big idea for delivering housing in Gidankwano at a reasonable cost, without too much burden on the borrowers. If the HELP Fund can be set up at 2% from various donors, government and other agencies, funding agencies, the banks take another 2%, making 4%, and NRCN takes another 2%, making 6% to the borrowers. This will make it affordable for them to borrow. Our idea is that people will only be allowed to borrow this money if they already have land. Land is not going to be acquired within this amount of money. And so the borrower is borrowing money to build investment property that can be rented out to students, so that the villagers can participate in the booming economy, the local economy of the university in Gidankwano. And this is our idea for the HELP, Housing Empowerment Loan Program for Gidankwano. We're just going around and we're doing a bit of a documentary. So you actually live here? A student hostel? I mean, how long have you been here? How long have you? Just okay, you're quite new. Okay. And how many people stay normally in a room? How many people combine in a room usually? Two? Yes. And that room can cost, let's say, how much?
120.
120. Is it self-contained? Does it have its own bathroom? Self-contained.
Yes.
And are almost all the rooms occupied?
Yeah.
Almost all? Yes. It's in demand? Okay.
You mean if I want, for instance, I will have to go through a lot of hustle to get? I won't get nothing, even at this cost.
The community that we're working in Minna, called Gidam Kwano, the project site, accepted us as soon as we came in with government people and people from the Emir's Palace. And that was a good one for the project.
We have partnered with the Nigeria Resilient Cities Network to roll out this 4P approach in Minna. It has been ongoing now since late last year with different activities, and from what we can say so far, it is really well accepted, much appreciated by the different stakeholders, the people, private sector, but especially also the public sector, looking at a different mode of urban planning, urban governance, incorporating the citizens' perspective to it, and they're also giving them a voice in decision-making powers and so on. And I guess also from the public sector, this was much appreciated. Classical, conventional urban planning in Nigeria does not incorporate that view too much.
Which now the NRCN is trying to take to almost all its partner cities, and hopefully through that be able to take this unique model globally, to help, humanity attain that, the SDG goals that we all crave for.